prepares for legal war with Donald Trump amid a plethora of scandals and disasters that have seen the resignations of the Director General and the Director of News. What can be done to save the BBC from what seems like an inexorable downhill slide into oblivion? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together, and let's go over to my Tuesday guest, my regular. Always a pleasure to welcome him. He is barrister, broadcaster, political and social pundit, Steven Barrett. Welcome, Steven.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Tuesday's child is fair of face.
There you go. Don't start quoting Shakespeare or whoever the hell that is. Who is that? Is that Shakespeare?
No, that's the old rhyme.
It's an old rhyme.
And I'm not sure I got it right, to be honest, Kevin. I just wanted to be fair of face.
Don't expose my literary failings, my shortcomings on the literary front. I'm supposed to have a degree in that sort of thing. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? I was particularly looking forward to talking to you about this one. And that is, of course, we broke this story last night, that Donald Trump will follow through on his pledge to sue Britain's state broadcaster, the BBC, for an enormous amount of money after it admitted that its flagship news documentary show, Panorama, deliberately doctored footage and tape of the president making that speech back on January the 6th, 2021, to make it look as if he was calling on the crowd, on the mob, to march violently on Capitol Hill, calling on them to cause insurrection, calling on them to spark a revolution in America. He was doing nothing of the kind. The BBC naively, ridiculously, immediately admitted this. Yes, we did this. We're not proud. We apologise. We're apologising to the president. We hope that this is the end of the affair. We're very, very sorry that we told lies, that our programme Panorama deliberately told lies about him, and we hope we can move on from this. No. They actually thought they were going to get away with that. Well, last night we broke the news that the president is indeed going to sue, or he has now sued the BBC, not for $1 billion as was initially threatened, not for $5 billion as the ante was upped, but for $10 billion. Now, there are so many aspects to this case that I find fascinating. One is the BBC's contention that somehow, as a broadcaster, as a journalistic outlet, that it doesn't have to adhere to the libel laws, the defamation laws, like every other journalistic outlet. We said sorry. What more does he want? Well, that isn't enough. You can't just say sorry and expect a libel to go away. But here's what you want to do if you've got your brains about you, if you've got your wits about you. You don't start apologising. You don't start admitting that you did it. Yeah, we did this. We're sorry. We're very sorry, Mr. President, that we did this. We're sorry that we deliberately doctored the tape to tell lies about you. Oh, you're suing us now. Well, we're going to defend this for all we're worth. Really, really stupid to admit libel when you pretty much know you're going to be going into a libel case. So you've admitted your guilt before the case even starts. Now the BBC seems to think it cannot fail in this lawsuit that's been filed in Florida. I've got bad news for the BBC. It will fail. I don't for a second think that Donald Trump will get $10 billion, but he's going to get something. They cannot possibly win this case. They have defamed him. They've admitted it, right?
It's, Kev, 21 years ago, I was doing what's called RTAs, road traffic accident cases, in the district, before district judges in the county court. And we used to think we'd won a case if the driver that hit somebody or was hit said sorry. So yes, admitting it in advance is incredibly stupid. But let's just analyze these narcissists, Kev. They're willing to throw wave after wave after wave of our money at this case. And that's what they're effectively going to do. It's not their own money that they're going to be spending. It's going to be our money that they're going to be spending. It comes in two main tranches. There's $5 billion for the defamation and also $5 billion in unfair trade practices. That's not been talked about far and by any way, to any extent enough by English lawyers who are not qualified in Florida, who keep sort of popping up to say that he's definitely going to lose. He's paying properly qualified Florida lawyers who will, you know, their reputation's on the line. Yeah. So we owe them at least a degree of professional courtesy, even if we can't just assume they're definitely going to win. It also, Kev, I think encapsulates this modern idea that morality is somehow connected to law, and so that if he wins, what the BBC did will be morally wrong. And I don't think morality is connected to law. The BBC has acted with absolute moral degeneracy, with the complete opposite of journalistic ethics. Mm-hmm. It has shamed itself utterly. I mean, I can think of no other way that the BBC could more humiliate itself. Mm-hmm. You know, it has defamed and insulted, and it has spread lies about the President of the United States, which is our closest political ally, who we have been allied with for as long as it matters. You know, my granny wouldn't have a word said against an American after they came to our aid during the Second World War. And to be honest, as a child, I always thought that was a bit eccentric. But having seen how much they defend us now, I won't have a word said against an American. And I won't have a word said against Mr. Trump. What was the BBC thinking that it was doing? What on earth does it think it's doing? And if it's going to fight this case with our money and try and get off on some technicality, and then turn around and say, see, we were morally good. No, you weren't. At no point have you been morally good. Even if Mr. Trump loses, and I accept that he's taken professional advice and he's actually a very seasoned litigator.
Yes, he's experienced at this sort of thing, yes.
Well, exactly. I mean, the BBC came out within 24 hours to say that they were innocent and he was definitely going to lose the case. And it's like, I just don't think the practicalities of contacting a lawyer in Florida that you didn't have before, you know, I just don't believe that you actually took legal advice before you said that. This is just our narcissistic age, in which these delusional narcissists who run all of our institutions, who have appointed each other to these cushy non-jobs, are more than willing to waste our money being corporatist and defensive, even though we all know they've done wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, they have done wrong. They cannot.
They've admitted it, which is a stupid thing to do when you know a legal case is hurtling down the track at you. These people are naive. They're born yesterday, and they're going to be playing with the big boys when they go over to America.
I think that's too kind. I think they are absolutely delusional narcissists who believe that because they've believed the mantras and recite all the beliefs that we all know that everybody who lives in a big house in Islington has, that they are therefore morally virtuous, superior to the rest of us. We're inferior, Kev. You and I are both.
Oh yeah, no, we're not on their Christmas card list. I'll tell you that.
God, well, Lord protect our listeners and viewers from these people and their views of them. But you know, this is just unbelievable that they would behave this way.
Also, Stephen, I was looking forward to talking to you because there are quite a few of these sort of media enthusiasts among your profession, these lawyers who crop up time and time again every time there's one of these cases. I never want them on. I want you on because you're an independent thinker. They're not. And they start sort of quoting precedent of a case in 1953 that happened in Oxford Crown Court. Well, that isn't really going to do you much use in Florida, mate, I'll tell you that. But I have heard today several of these lawyers, all of whom seem to think, oh, that's the BBC, they can't possibly lose against this oik, President Trump. I have heard one of them actually said, well, the BBC's defence will be that although they did edit this tape, that essentially they edited it to relay the true message of what his speech was. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. So in other words, these lefties, these lefty lawyers, lefties in the BBC, they believe that although this tape was doctored, it still delivered the essential message that they think Trump was actually saying, which was, hey, you lot with your buffalo hats and your Stars and Stripes flags, you march on Capitol Hill. Let's have a revolution. That's what they are actually maintaining that essentially Trump said, which he said absolutely the opposite. He said, don't do it peacefully if you must. That was all he said. So that's a nonsense. And another nonsensical line of argument that I've heard from members of your profession today, these ones who like going on to Sky News and things like that, and the BBC indeed, said, well, this is a freedom of expression issue. This is a freedom of speech issue. You know, the BBC has got a right to... You can't stop the BBC from saying... Wait a second. You know me, and I think you're the same. I'm pretty much an absolutist about freedom of speech to what some people would say is an almost lunatic extent. I believe people should be able to say whatever the hell they like without fear of the law coming for them. But maybe I go a little bit too far on that. So I probably do sometimes. However... here's where I draw the line about freedom of speech. You cannot be allowed to lie about someone in public. That's what the BBC have done. They have lied about President Trump. These are direct lies which definitely affect his reputation. There's no doubt about it. If he loses this case, he is the man who officially said, let's have a revolution, get up there and set fire to the Capitol Hill. He didn't do that. So they're saying that they ought to be allowed to tell lies about the President of the United States of America. Well, I've got bad news for them. They are not allowed to do that. This is not a freedom of speech issue. This is a journalism issue. Did you get your story right? Or did you get your story wrong? The BBC has admitted they got their story wrong. It's not a freedom of speech issue. It is a truth issue. And if you lied about someone, you lose the libel case, right?
Yeah. And with friends like this, you know, the BBC doesn't need enemies. You know, this is just an absurd argument to have. The BBC should not be lying, and people should not be defending the right of the BBC to lie. It is not freedom of speech to spread malicious rumours about people. That's clearly what they did to President Trump. It's not freedom of speech to damage this country diplomatically, which is what the BBC has done. Do you know their motto is the BBC shall speak peace, nation shall speak peace unto nation? It's like you literally try to incentivize violence against the President of the United States. Yeah. This is absolutely disgraceful. But these are just unaccountable narcissists. And what we've seen, Kev, structurally in our country, behind the word independent has lurked the word unaccountable. And every time we found unaccountable institutions like the BBC, like Ofcom, like every other, like numerous police constables, chief constables right now, that behind independent lurks unaccountable. Behind unaccountable, we find narcissists who just do whatever the hell they like without any fear of consequence. And President Trump is right to many extent. I mean, he's doing this for us. I mean, I suspect he's a rather charming man. So I suspect he's very cunning. So I expect he'll do something like beat them, get the money, and then give it back to the people. Yeah. Because, you know, he's very...
Well, he's making this isn't a financial thing. He's making a very serious point. I've also heard people from the BBC, you know, sort of apparatchiks, BBC lifers, these people who work there and become kind of Stockholm syndrome, completely indoctrinated. So actually I actually heard a former BBC executive say, this was a couple of weeks ago, well, the BBC has apologised. What more does President Trump want? $10 billion, if you want to know.
But it's not just that, Kev. He wants them to not lie again. And to put in place systems so that they don't lie in future. To actually not just say, oh, I'm terribly sorry I got caught, but actually to fix the problem. And that, because always in these libel cases, Kev, you can fix this. You know, we end up with all sorts of statements. You know, the victim might demand that the newspaper puts the story on the front page or page 3, but we come to a negotiated settlement whereby the victim is happy that the perpetrator has genuinely taken on board what they have done. And instead, the BBC has not genuinely taken on board what it has done. Yeah. It is trying to play victim whilst being the perpetrator.
Exactly right. And also, you know, the BBC maintains, or some people in the BBC maintain, well, it's Donald Trump. He hasn't really got any reputation to lose. He is the President of the United States of America, and you are saying that he called for a revolution in the United States of America. Let me tell you, folks, at the BBC, that is called reputational damage. Get your checkbook out. Before we move on, Stephen, let's just play old Donald confirming last night that he will sue the Beeb.
In a little while, you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth. They had me saying things that I never said coming out. I guess they used AI or something. So we'll be bringing that lawsuit. A lot of people are asking, when are you bringing that lawsuit? Even the media can't believe that one. They actually put terrible words in my mouth having to do with January 6th that I didn't say. And the beautiful words that I said, right? The beautiful words. Talking about patriotism and all of the good things that I said, they didn't say that, but they put terrible words. They actually have me speaking with words that I never said, and they got caught because I believe somebody at BBC said, this is so bad, it has to be reported. That's called fake news. So we'll be filing that suit probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Well, they've got that suit now, Stephen, and my message to you guys, you people at the BBC, is be afraid. Be very afraid. Let's go to break now, Stephen, and when we come back, we'll talk about a disgraceful attempt to ban Monday night's vigil by the Jewish community here to pay tribute to their fallen Jewish friends and colleagues in Australia. All they wanted to do was to gather to pay tribute to the 16 people massacred in the Bondi Beach horror, and Sadiq Khan's London officials tried to ban it for security reasons. Extraordinary. We'll talk about that